Hey guys, I'm just going ahead and giving you the video of what I have been reading so far since we've all been in quarantine. There is a good thing that's come out of this with my reading. I've been reading a lot more. I don't get a lot of time to do that anymore because it's either, oh, I want to do this more, or I don't really feel like reading today. So I really feel accomplished. I've read 7 books so far since I've been off of work, and I think it's a big accomplishment. I don't know. I'm very happy about it. Most of the time it's like either like a book. Depending on how big it is, it could be like between 1 to 3 books I read in a month. So it's just because I'm always busy or I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, so I was very excited. So one of the books that I'm reading that I read, it's a V.C. Andrews book. It is called Beneath the Attic. It's actually a review copy that I got from Goodreads and from Gallery Books, so thank you guys for sending that to me. And if you're not familiar with V.C. Andrews, she writes a lot of, well, she used to write a lot of very like dark, very kind of like taboo books. A lot of her stuff that she writes is kind of like very difficult in culture, like she has incest, rape, those kinds of topics. So it's not really happy books that she's written. But this is a spin-off to her Flowers in the Attic series, which if you're not familiar with Flowers in the Attic, it is about 4 siblings who go to their grandmother's house with their mother after their father dies to try to get her parents' inheritance. But as you find out, there's a lot of like stuff that's going on that they end up finding out the real truth about their family, and there's the twisted secret to the family. And it's actually one of my favorite book series. I actually finished reading the original series, I think, end of last year, early this year, and I really love it, even though a lot of people have problems with it, but I really like it because at that time it was definitely unheard of, and it's definitely one of the books that I think it's on like the banned book list or something like that. But those books were really good, and they each have their own difference. I read after that, it was called the Diary series, and it was another spin-off. Now, V.C. Andrews has passed away. She passed away, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. I could be wrong. So any book that she's published out recently from that day or from those years when she passed away is a ghostwriter. So it's not her, they just branded under the name. And it's someone, I think, that I read somewhere, that's someone that she knew who picked up her name and is writing everything for her. I think it was the 4th book for Flowers in the Attic, which is Seeds of Yesterday. I think that was one that she actually passed away during, and he picked up and rewrote the rest. And then he also did the prequel, which is Garden of Shadows, which that one was also good. But anyway, the Diary series is a spin-off from that, and that involves a descendant of that family, which you find out later on. But I hated it. It was not good. It was literally, I describe it, a girl getting hot and bothered by what happened in her family. And it was not good at all. So I definitely agree with that one was not good. They did another book after that called Secret Brother that pertains to the whole saga, and I hated that too. I didn't like the character. It didn't make sense that this one character came back after apparently dying. It didn't make sense to me, and I think that was like a hit or miss thing where I felt like they were just trying to get a book out to get a book out. But I definitely love this series because also not only this one, I also read Out of the Attic, which I got from the library, and then there's supposed to be another one that's coming out in June or July, but I forget what it is, but it's set with this one, but it's not part of this series. But anyway, let me tell you what that one is, these ones that are about. So both of these have to deal with the original Corinne Dixon, who is one of the characters. She's actually the mother in the original Flowers in the Attic series. And it's about her meeting Malcolm Foxworth. No, not Malcolm Foxworth, sorry. Gardner, I think like Garland, that's what it is. Sorry, it's been a while since I've read this one, so I kind of like phased out. So Garland Foxworth, she meets him and they begin this like love affair, but something happens. And in the first book, you find out that she ends up being pregnant. So she ends up having to marry Garland, and no one really knows why she has to marry him. She just thinks because he loves her and wants to be with her. So the first book is her kind of getting married and kind of figuring out that dark side of his family. And the sequel picks up, I think, 5 years after she's married and has her baby, which is Malcolm Foxworth, which is the grandfather in the original series. And you kind of see her struggle in here with, she doesn't really love Garland anymore. She falls in love with a painter who comes to paint her portrait for Garland. And I really liked the original Corinne. I thought she was very well developed. For me, the story made sense. I really liked how she went from being this really like snotty, like very like full of herself kind of character to being this character that you want her to like succeed. You want her to get out of this marriage. You want her to stand up for herself pretty much. And she really does a good job of trying to stand up for herself, but Garland just keeps getting in the way. And you also kind of see how she struggles with her relationship with Malcolm, which is her son. And it's very heartbreaking, especially for her, because you would think for her, like having a baby and stuff, it would change her life. But it changed her life, but not in the way that she would have wanted. But I just felt like the author did a really good job doing the spin-off series, and it's definitely one of my favorites. So I definitely think that these ones should have been written after Garden of Shadows, in my opinion. And I would say if you're going to read them, definitely read the original 4, read Garden of Shadows, and then just jump straight right into the Beneath an Attic and Out of the Attic. I would skip Secret Brother, and I would skip the 2 Christopher's Diaries, because I just felt like they didn't make sense, and I was just like, ugh. So definitely these were fun to read. I gave these a 4 out of 5, I think, for each of them, because I had fun reading them. They were really quick to read. I really got into all the characters. The story made sense. I do know there's a lot of people, and I've seen it on Goodreads, there's this one person that just hates the ghostwriter. No matter what this person writes, or even if they didn't read it, they just give it a 1 star. And it's like, this person is crap, they don't know how to write. And I'm like, well, maybe you should read these ones, because these are actually pretty good. So I don't know, maybe just my opinion, because I have written her work. I'm like, it kind of would be in the vein that she would write, but I don't know. So yeah, I read V.C. Andrews' Beneath the Attic and Out of the Attic. So those are fun to read. So the next book I read, if you haven't seen the TV show yet, I haven't yet. I'm watching it with my friend, and we're trying to meet up and get together right now so we can watch it. But it is called Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ning. And this one is really, really great. I think this is one of the best books that I have read so far this year. I gave it, I think, a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. But it is about 2 different families. The Richardson family, who live in this very developed neighborhood in Shakertown, or is it Shaker Heights, and a family that moves in. And the debate in the town pertains to the adoption of a Chinese baby. There's a struggle between everybody's opinion on should this adoption family get her, or should the original birth mother have her. And it's kind of a good debate topic. I was talking about it with my friend, and we kind of both agreed on the same answer. But this was a book I could not put down. This author does a great job of bringing you into other characters' lives, but it feels so seamlessly. Like, you go from one and then you realize you're going to another one and not even realizing it until you finish the sentence. But I love this story. It's a very heartbreaking story, one that I think it pertains to a lot of people in real life, especially with the struggle for motherhood and what it means to actually be a mother. I feel like anyone who likes kind of like drama, or just likes a read that want to make them think, this is definitely one that you should go with. Love this book. And it's a library copy, so it's not really mine, but I cannot wait to get a copy of this, have it on my bookshelf, because this is definitely one I think I'm going to be reading for a while, whenever I need to look like another good thinking read. And I feel like with that one too, it's one of those ones that you could reread again and pick up something that you didn't know was there. And it also has a lot of twists and turns, which is awesome. So there's different problems in there that it doesn't just pertain to this adoption issue between the two families. I should also mention too that the Richardsons are really wealthy, while as the other family that comes in, I can't think of the last name right now. Let me see if I can find it on the flap. Warren. So the Warrens, they're kind of more of a poor family. They're more of like, they float around, and the mom, it's a single mom and her daughter. So that also kind of shows you a different like power struggle, I guess. Not really a power struggle, a class struggle, but definitely a good book. If you haven't watched the show yet, I would say definitely read the book first before you see the show, but if you love the show, definitely read the book. Also, Reese Witherspoon picked it for her book club, and I think that's why she got the show to be made, because she really believed in it. But yeah, so that one was one of my favorites. So the other thing I've been reading is I have a couple of wrestling biographies that I have not gotten to, and I really have wanted to read them. I would say the one that I'm going to show first is kind of old. The other ones aren't really that old. I would say they're like 2-3 years. The other one is like from 2015, so that's a little bit older. But the first one that I read is called Yes, My Improbable Journey to the Main Event at WrestleMania by Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is one of the wrestlers that is in WWE, and this is about his journey from when he won the world title, and I think it was a unification match too, because they were getting rid of the one title and making room for this world title. But it journeys his time up to that, but each chapter you go and learn about his life, and learning how he grew up, and learning how he, where he went wrestling, and all the different people that he met. And it was really good. It was a really good book that I really enjoyed reading. There's times that I laughed in here. There was stuff that made me really, not really cry, but made me sad and maybe empathetic, because he talks about some tragedies that have happened in the wrestling world that some people might know. And just, it was very in-depth, and I think it gave me an idea as to what some of the WWE books, because this was on the WWE Books Publishing, which they work with, what is it, I think St. Martin's, yeah, St. Martin's Press. So it definitely was really cool to see that it wasn't like shallow, and it wasn't like, I would say it wasn't like fluff. Like, he's really honest in here with himself, with how he felt. He also talks a lot about Brie, which, if you guys don't know, I'm a big Bella's fan, and Brie Bella is his wife. But he talks a lot about how they met and how they got together, and it's really cute. You can definitely tell how much he loves her. He still loves her to this day, but I love this book. It was so much fun. I think this one was a 5 out of 5 that I gave, but I love this one. So good. Made me love him more as a fan. I already loved him before, but I have more respect for him and love him a little bit more now from reading that. The next one I read is King of Strong Style, 1980 to 2014, by Shinsuke Nakamura. He is also another wrestler that is in WWE, but this is a book that he wrote with Viz Media. It's an autographed copy that I got at Barnes & Noble. They were doing it for Black Friday books, so there's his signature. So it's really awesome. I have that with my signed books, which are up here. Just my hardbacks, my paperbacks are like down here somewhere, because I have a whole bunch. But this was a different kind of book to read. This is pretty much Shinsuke talking about his life up till 2014, when he used to work with New Japan, and learning his trainings with the dojos and things like that in Japan, because Japan has a big wrestling culture. They are really big fans of it. And they're different from American fans in the point that they just sit and watch. They don't really have that cheering, like, when you think of wrestling, like WWE and stuff like that, all the American fans go crazy and are screaming. No, they just kind of sit and watch and clap, and they're pretty much respectful. So it's something different that I never knew. So this just kind of talks about his time with New Japan when he was there, his different relationships. And it's really different too, because it's split into different like chapters, but how they did it was interview questions and then he answered them. He did have someone work on translating with him, so I don't know if maybe this book was written the same way and just translated differently, or I don't know. Like, I think maybe it might have been a different style if it was published in Japan, but I definitely liked it. It was a good read. I think with it being like more of an interview, it kind of hindered my enjoyment because I kind of wanted to just read it in his perspective, not have someone kind of there in the conversation when you're reading. But I definitely think it's definitely one if you want to get to know more of the side of the Japanese style of wrestling. Definitely this is one to pick up, I would say. And Shinsuke is definitely one of the best that are out there. I definitely love him. I've loved him since I started watching, which was 2017. So it definitely gave me a little bit more insight into his career. Don't know if he's going to write another one later on in his life where he picks up from 2014. But if he is, I definitely want to pick it up and read it. So that was one that I read. The last wrestling book that I've read is written by Ric Flair and his daughter Charlotte. Her real name's Ashley. It's called Second Nature, The Legacy of Ric Flair and the Rise of Charlotte. This one I loved how it was written because the first half was written by Rick and then the other half was written by Charlotte. Ric Flair, most of you know, even if you don't watch, he's a pop culture phenomenon. He was one of the best that ever did it. He likes to call himself the man. And pretty much he says to be the man, you got to beat the man. So to be the best, you have to be the best. Or beat the best, I should say. But I love this because he does talk a little bit about his retirement match. It kind of starts there, and then he talks a little about his history. And I liked it too because it wasn't like going back to his childhood. He already wrote a book previously, so I feel like that's more of it. But I feel like you got to see more of the human side to him and how his character has affected him in his life because he's been married many times, he's been divorced many times, he's went through different struggles in his life with addiction, with how wrestling kind of changed his life, and it also changed his perspective on raising kids. He had 2 kids before he had Charlotte and her little brother. So it was very eye-opening for him, the stuff that he learned along the way and lessons that he learns. And also with Charlotte, she's one of the best in the women's division right now with WWE, but there's a lot of stuff I never knew about her, and it made me kind of become more of a fan of hers. In her life, she has went through domestic abuse with a boyfriend that she had, and it's really sad to kind of just hear her recount that. Like, I feel like if she was telling you the story in person, she would be very, like, heartbroken. But she went through a lot. She also went through the struggle with her job that she had. I think it was like she was going for a volleyball scholarship. She turned that down because of the boyfriend she was with, to be with him, to fix him a little bit. Then she was doing, she wanted to do WWE and give it a shot. And it wasn't something that she originally thought of. Her 2 brothers were the ones that really wanted to do it more than she did. So she gave it a shot, and she's one of the best in the company. But you definitely see her struggles. She did not get everything that she's done so far based on her name. She's had to earn it, and that's something that her dad instilled in her. It was just really good just to, like, hear from the different perspectives, and, like, of course she talked more about herself growing up because this is the first book that she's written. But I love this book. I definitely think anybody that just definitely likes a good, like, I guess like a more of a comeback story, or kind of like a good story to read that's really gripping, this is definitely one that I would suggest, especially for anyone that's, you know, struggles with domestic abuse. I think this would be a great one that you could read to try to realize that, see, even someone who is the biggest person in the world before they became one of the biggest people in the world has struggled before too. But yeah, definitely this one. And the last book that I've read, I just finished, I want to say like an hour or 2 ago, but one of my favorite authors in the YA genre is Natasha Preston. She writes a lot more darker books, and over here you can see I have The Cellar and The Cabin, which are 2 of my favorites. They're so good. I liken her and Danielle Vega to be kind of like the YA version of Stephen King, but not as, like, heavy. They're still heavy, not heavy topics, but they're still like horror topics. And the book that I read by her, is called Awake. So this book was really good. I did have some issues with it, and I'll talk about that later. But this is about a girl named Scarlett. She unfortunately has something where she does not remember anything before the age of 4. And it's always something that's bothered her, but it's something that she just kind of has basically said, if I remember, I remember. she ends up meeting a boy named Noah, who, after she has met him and she has a car accident that changes pretty much everything, she starts remembering things from her childhood. What she doesn't know is that Noah is linked to her childhood somehow, and he's not as innocent as he seems to be. I don't want to give it away, but if you've ever seen the movie Midsommar, I kind of got Midsommar vibes when I got to the middle of this book. It's not the same exact thing. It's kind of the same process that you read about, but it's not the same. I kind of got the version of like Midsommar, and then kind of like any kind of like, I want to say like if you know about like what happened in Waco, Texas, and with like Charlie Manson and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good book. The problem I really had with it was there was a couple like grammatical issues that weren't caught. I don't know if that was just by accident or they just kind of like slapped it, because Natasha Preston was a Wattpad reader, so her books, I feel like The Cabin and The Cellar were ones that were written on Wattpad, and they just kind of slapped it into a book. So I don't know if this was something that she just was going to publish on Wattpad. It's not on Wattpad, and she just kind of like threw it in there. She did have a publisher, it said, but maybe they just missed it. And the other thing I didn't like is I don't think she kept the ages in track of like Scarlett. Except for the end when you find out about Noah's real age, like that made sense, but she kept switching Scarlett between she's a 15-year-old, then she's 16, then she's 15 again. So maybe it's just a structuring issue and something she didn't like misled. I still give the book 3 out of 5. It's still an enjoyable read. I really like it. It's definitely one I want to read again. But a lot of those kind of issues are what kind of made me not enjoy it as much. But it's definitely good. I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat. I wanted to finish this book, and I did in 2 days. I started it really early in the morning yesterday, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I just finished it a couple hours ago. So it was really good. Really quick read too if you're just looking for something to take your mind off of what's going on in the world. So definitely good. Good book. Love Natasha Preston. I suggest anything by her is a good read. So those are the 7 that I read, and then I'm just going to kind of show you briefly. I'm not going to go over everything individually, but I kind of wanted to go over my stack of what I'm going to go through, and if you guys want me to talk to you about it, just let me know, or if you're interested, I can shoot you a message about what it's about. So I have 2 other Natasha Preston books. She just came out with a new one, The Twin, which I don't have yet. I really want to get that one to add to my collection, but I'm kind of waiting until I read a little bit more before I add more books into my collection, and I want to see maybe later if the library has it. I don't know. But I am working on getting that one. But the ones they have here are You Will Be Mine and then The Lost. So I'm really excited to read those, and especially like the covers. I forgot to mention too, the covers on these are gorgeous. Like, I love them. They're really good covers. So then I'm also in a classics mood. So I pulled out a lot of my classics that I have. And like I said, I'll just go over briefly with them. So I have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the New Looking Glass. I haven't read this yet. So these are ones that I haven't read either. So, or there's some that I know, I just haven't read the book. So I have The Phantom of the Opera, which I'm really excited to read that. Anne Frank. I have not read her diary yet, so this is something that I really want to read, especially since a lot of people love this book. It's a hard-hitting read, but I really like those, especially with the history and stuff that she went through, so I'm really excited to read that. I have Memoirs of a Geisha. I'm also going to be rereading The Great Gatsby, because I haven't read it in a while, since high school, so I kind of want to reread it again. Same thing with The Scarlet Letter. This is one of my favorite books. Nathaniel Hawthorne is one of my favorite authors. I really want to read more of his work, but The Scarlet Letter is, I love this book. It is so good. It's one of my favorites. And I'm so excited to reread that one again, because that one made me feel all the feels. I love it so much. Just the story and just, it's so good. Like, I have nothing but good things to say about it. Delta of Venus, I've had this one for a while, and I'm really excited to read it, because Anais Nin was like one of the first people to write erotica and have it kind of published in a way, so I'm kind of really curious to see what her writing is like. I have In the Shadow of Frankenstein and In the Shadow of Edgar Allan Poe. These are 2 that I got in a subscription box, which I love that subscription box. I didn't want to cancel it, but I just don't use it that much. But it includes some stories, I think. It definitely, Frankenstein includes Frankenstein, but then there's also like other stories that are related to it. And Edgar Allan Poe, I think, is the same thing. There's like short stories and things. So I'm really curious to read that and maybe see if any authors come out of that. Speaking of Edgar Allan Poe, I have his complete tales and poems. I love Edgar Allan Poe. He is my #1 favorite author. Nathaniel Hawthorne is my second one. But I've loved Poe ever since I was in middle school. I did a report on him for English. I read his stuff. So I'm really excited to have this. And I'm also going to switch between that copy and this copy. It's actually an illustrated one of his tales, I think. Yeah, selected poems and tales. So I'm really excited to read it because it's got like illustrations and it's kind of more of a coffee table style book. So I'm probably going to switch between those. I have this really old book that I got from somewhere, and it's Myths and Legends of Greece and Rome. So just something really cool to read. It's not really a classic, I guess, but myths and legends and stuff like that are awesome. And then I'm also going to be catching up on a lot of my Dark Shadows stuff, which, if you guys don't know, Dark Shadows is one of my favorite television shows of all time. Not a fan of the movie that has Johnny Depp and all them in. They completely trashed it. The only good thing that was about that was Alice Cooper was in it, and it had the original cast in the ballroom. So that was the only good thing about that movie. But I have Dark Shadows Return to Collinwood. This was written by one of the actresses, Catherine Lee Scott. She is this one over here. She played Maggie Evans, and she also played Josette Dupree Collins. So my hamster is named after her character. But it's a little picture book, and kind of talks about the different reiterations of it, a little bit of a history, and it's really fun, and I've been wanting to read it. It's just been sitting around for a while. And then I also have the Dark Shadows series of books that came out, and they are written by Laura Parker, who is this lovely lady on the cover. She plays Angelique Bouchard, who is a witch, and you don't want to mess with her pretty much in the show. She is not someone you want to piss off pretty much. But Laura Parker wrote these books in a series, and I love it because she was attached to the original show. So I know these are going to be good. So I have Angelique's Descent, which is the first book, Salem Branch, which is the second book, Wolf Moon Rising, and then Heiress of Collinwood. Heiress of Collinwood, I think, came out. It's the more recent one. It came out in 2016. And I've been looking to see if she's going to have any more out, but I'm hoping. And then the other thing I'm really excited about, I don't have these yet, but I'm working on it, is they are coming out with the pocketbooks, the little pocketbooks that they did from the original show, and they're reprinting them. So that's one I'm definitely going to get in the future. I'm not going to get them all right now because there's like over 30 of them, and they're each 15 a piece. So I'm definitely going to be collecting them. I want those in my Dark Shadows collection. But yeah, so anyway, guys, I'm glad you came in on here. I know it's a little bit long, but I kind of tried to shorten it as much as I could, but that is what I'm planning to read, at least even if we're not in the quarantine anymore. These are books that I am planning to read, and I do plan on letting you guys know probably maybe another chunk of these how they go, and then just kind of split it up. But thank you guys. I'll see you later. Bye.